Did the Baltimore Ravens play well enough to win on Sunday against the Steelers? No, they lost the game, but they were also robbed. We talk about that and so much more on an instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here on this Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. Thanks to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. This falls into our and more category with our instant reaction show, where Ravens lost to the Steelers, didn't play well enough, and they were also certainly robbed, in my opinion, in this game. Just super frustrating all across the board. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the calls that went against Baltimore. We'll talk about some of the poor plays that the Ravens had throughout this game. Again, it was a whole thing. It wasn't just one side, wasn't just the refs, wasn't just this or that. I mean, Baltimore, there was a lot that went wrong in this football game. So again, I appreciate everybody for being here. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Man, what a frustrating, brutal loss for Baltimore. They tried to stage the comeback, didn't happen. They got down by far too much early, and we've seen that script a couple of times before for the Ravens, but you know, the slow starts just continue to haunt this team. Let's start off with the calls. We'll start off with the calls. Again, not the full story of the game, but you know, I think I'd be lying to you if I didn't say the calls had some level of an impact in this game. Obviously, the big one everybody's talking about is the Isaiah Likely touchdown. That was not. Lamar finds Isaiah Likely in the end zone on a touchdown that would have given the Ravens the lead, but the referees called incomplete. And essentially, so John Harbaugh talked about it. Isaiah Likely has talked about it already. And the messaging, I guess, was the third foot. Well, in my understanding, you need 2 feet down. I mean, it's weird. I don't understand it. I mean, there was a play earlier in the season for Pittsburgh that went similarly, that was called a touchdown. And I just don't really understand it, where Gene Steratore over on, you know, he was a former NFL referee. He does some stuff now. He's CBS, right? So he's a CBS guy. So he said that Isaiah Likely, the rules that to have completed a pass, the receiver must secure control of the ball, which, yes, check. Then you have to have both feet or a body part other than your hands in bounds, check. But then he says, perform a football move, take a third step, tuck the ball away, turn up field, avoid, ward off an opponent, to maintain control of the ball long enough to do so. And so he said the third element was not met. Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know what's a catch anymore and what's not. You know, he was holding the ball out as to, you know, hold it away from Joey Porter Jr., who knocked the ball out. But, you know, the fact that you even need to have that clear, like he was holding the ball out. And I think that, you know, if we're doing order of operations, 2 feet football move, but he made a football move in extending the ball out. So, I mean, now you need 3 feet in the NFL for it to be a touchdown. Like, that's so random. And honestly, it's ridiculous. And, you know, it wasn't the only call that went against the Ravens. The Steelers obviously had calls that went against them too, but it just felt like late in that game, it was penalty after penalty after penalty. And I'm not saying every call was bad. Like, the Ravens did commit penalties. They were sloppy in this game. We'll talk about that. But, you know, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? When you catch the football at the point, you jump up for it, and then you extend the football away. Is extending the ball not a football move? You know, I don't get it. And Harbaugh even talked about how, like, and this is a play that I was wondering about, like the Aaron Rodgers interception that wasn't, where Rodgers was deemed to have possession of that ball and his knee touched the ground, and then the ball gets ripped away. And how is that conclusive that that's a play that goes in the Steelers' favor? And then the Isaiah Likely play is like, okay, boom, that's incomplete. Where it looked like those plays should have probably been the opposite of each other. Where if you're going to call it one way, call it the other way with possession versus not possession or whatever it may be. it's frustrating. So did the Ravens play good enough to win this game? No, I don't think they did. But they also kind of did because they were in position to win the football game if Isaiah Likely scored that touchdown. Now, again, there was sloppy play from Baltimore, the slow start like we talked about, drops, the interception from Lamar. Defensively, there was little pass rush on some of these plays, and, they allowed DK Metcalf to have a huge game. Like, Baltimore did not, in my opinion, play a great game in this one, but they had an opportunity and a chance, and it felt like they had it right there. And, look what happens when it's not just about the Likely call. It's not just about the Rodgers call. There was that Travis Jones play, and Brian Baldinger actually talked about that, where he was like, he didn't know it wasn't a rule to rush through the center and the left guard. He said it was questionable to him. I mean, again, it was just like all these momentum swing plays. Like, that was a 4-point swing. The Isaiah Likely touchdown, that was, a huge swing in the game. Obviously, he had other swings in this game. And again, were the refs at fault for Rashad Bateman dropping that easy first down / touchdown? No. Were they at fault for Lamar throwing that interception? No. Were they at fault for Daniel Falele getting blown by over and over again in this game? No. But I think we can acknowledge that two things can be true, where the Ravens didn't play well enough and the referees had a major impact on this outcome that ended up going against Baltimore. So I just, some of the play calling stuff. I mean, we're going to dive into all that as the show continues and goes on here, but it's just super frustrating because we know how important this game is. And this was like a marquee matchup, AFC North, Ravens and Steelers. I can't. The media, everyone in the media is calling this out here. Skip Bayless, he's saying that's a TD catch by Likely. And we're going to talk about this a lot more on tomorrow's Monday episode. But, he's super frustrated. Lamar thought that the play was a touchdown. And of course, more of this is going to come out over the course of the rest of the night, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But I'm floored. The penalty stats for both teams, not the Pittsburgh played a clean game themselves, but the Ravens had 5 for 39 penalties, Steelers 7 for 33. But it just felt like in a lot of these high leverage moments, I don't know. I can't do it. So it's awful. It's horrible how the refs can have that influence in a game. But my big saying and everything I have said, if you've been listening to me for years on Locked On Ravens, I've said, don't let it come down to the refs. Don't let it come down to the refs. And the Ravens, I mean, look, scoring a touchdown like that, you kind of are in their hands, but they hadn't started as slow as they did, hadn't left some points on the board, et cetera, hadn't let Aaron Rodgers do some of the things he was going to do. But at this point, you have to just kind of wonder, after two pretty demoralizing losses back-to-back in two very different ways, your AFC North record is now at 2-2. That is brutal. You now don't have the tiebreaker against Pittsburgh at, time of this recording. Maybe week 18 they win, they can get it back, an AFC North record. But, while there are still 4 games left, it certainly feels like this season is pretty done for the Ravens. It's not officially over. It's not, I guess, officially over till they have the E next to their name in the standings. But I just, if you let the game get decided by the referees, you didn't play well enough. And, some of those calls, like if the Ravens had put the ball in the end zone, like if Bateman didn't drop that ball, and forced the Ravens to kick a field goal instead of go for the touchdown, then that Isaiah Likely call wouldn't have been as detrimental, wouldn't have been nearly as detrimental. So again, the Ravens put themselves in that moment, but the referees failed to deliver in those moments, in my opinion. And it's hard to sometimes win against an opponent and the referees, but when you don't do your job specifically with play calling, execution, and whatnot, you put yourself in those bad situations, it becomes a lot harder because you're going up against so many elements. And I thought there were questionable decisions from a playmaking perspective, from a play calling perspective, just everything went, well, I guess not everything, but you have so many weird things that happen over the course of the game. And I have no idea. I have no idea what to even think about this team anymore. I mean, and again, when you can't win games like this in the clutch against, the Steelers aren't a bad team. They're not a great team either. But, when your wins have come against teams like Cleveland and the Jets and the Vikings and stuff like that. And again, they beat the Bears, who were NFC leading with Tyler Huntley. That was an impressive win. But, when you're having games like this against teams who are either in the playoff hunt or playoff teams, it raises questions about what is your ceiling and what is your floor this season. And so when guys aren't stepping up, when they're dropping passes or blowing coverages or not tackling or throwing bad, like whatever it is, play calling wise, when you're not executing in that regard as well, there's only so much you can do. Like, then when the refs factor it in, you're like, all right, this is the final nail in the coffin here. This is not going to go your way. And even so, the Ravens still had an opportunity to win this game, even after all of that. And then Lamar Jackson takes a sack, which is the absolute last thing you can do in that situation. And the offensive line just, again, has played another poor game from them. They had some good moments in this game. It wasn't all bad from them. I thought they opened up some rushing lanes for Derrick Henry and whatnot. But, even still, it just wasn't good enough. And it's frustrating. That's the word I keep coming back to. It's a brutal loss because we know the playoff implications of this game, how multiple different people have cited how, the winner of this game goes up to about 70 to 75% playoff percentage. The loser is about 30 to 25%. And you have a long, like you're already climbing out of a deep hole and you just dug yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. But again, it doesn't take away the fact that the referees made some pretty mind-numbing calls in this game that went against Baltimore, where it felt like Pittsburgh was just like, legal contact, 5 yards, first down, whatever. Like, okay, cool. Pass interference, okay, first down. But these Ravens calls were like Travis Jones and Isaiah Likely and just all these other plays where you're just like, these are massive calls. And again, like if they're the right calls, fine. Like the Ravens made a mistake in the big moment, okay, fine. But when they're these questionable toss-up, sometimes just flat out wrong calls, it's going to impact the game severely, like that Teddy Buchanan play. It's a lot to go against you. When you're not playing up to your standard, those things are going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So it's really tough to overcome stuff like that. Now you have 4 games left. Cincinnati coming up next week, and they're going to be, I know that they lost to Buffalo, but they're going to be a team that is, they're essentially they're kind of out of the playoff picture right now, but they're going to try to win all their remaining games. And then, there are so many other different situations out there that Bengals team's probably going to be motivated. Then you have the Patriots, the Packers, and the Steelers to round it out. You essentially probably have to go 4-0 here to make the playoffs and win your division. In fact, that probably is what has to happen nonetheless. But still have a lot more to dive into here on Locked On Ravens. Coming up, we'll continue talking about the referees, the play, the performance, particularly Derrick Henry, because I thought that usage was really weird. And we're going to have a lot more coming your way on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. So for the Ravens and Steelers in this game, if you had DK Metcalf over on the yards, DK Metcalf was awesome in this game. Maybe had Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown, had the one taken away, but also had the other one. So head over to FanDuel right now. Make sure you're over there. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Moving along on the instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you after the Ravens' brutal loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number 14, drops them to 6-7, and that hill they have to climb. They have an uphill battle to the max right now. Appreciate everybody for being here, especially after a loss and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. We have the regular show Monday through Friday. We have watch-alongs. We just did the watch-along for the Ravens and Steelers game live. We have the instant reaction shows after games and after pieces of big news. We got the squad show, which is coming up right after this with myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. So we got a lot of coverage here, especially covering this team that right now it's been a disappointing season. One of the more frustrating seasons, honestly, I can remember, especially covering this team. Might be a top Well, I guess because 2021 was injuries. I mean, this might be the most frustrating season I've covered for the Ravens. I think it honestly probably is. Playoff exits aside, right? This to me is probably the most frustrating season. And I think this game was kind of an encapsulation of all the frustration where you have the slow start, like you have the big play from Zay early in this game, and then you kind of have to settle for a field goal. You're like, all right, here we go again. And then the Steelers respond. Aaron Rodgers is moving around like he's 25 again. Like that was ridiculous. So many things went wrong in this game on top of the referees. And again, when you're playing the opponent and the referees and yourselves, it's hard to go out there and win. So, we talked a lot about the refs. And again, like it was tough all the way around with the likely call, the Buchanan interception that wasn't. And, it just felt like they weren't calling it both ways on a lot of these things, which is tough and, kind of happens in sports, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. Honestly, it's a $1 billion industry, right? Like, we should probably know what a catch is and what a catch isn't at this point. So I just continue to watch the replay over and over again to see, like, likely makes the football move, but I guess it is order of operations. But even still, like, is him extending the ball not a football move and continuously doing it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. So, we talked a lot about that, but execution wise, I also think that, there was a lot of miscues here from Baltimore. And I think, again, this all starts with the head coach and John Harbaugh. And honestly, so I'm going to start off with a hot take here. This is going to be a frying take. Maybe not. Maybe some people will agree. But, I like throwing out hot takes because, one, I agree. I believe them. But two, I'm curious to see the response. Let's talk offensive line. I mean, the O-line had some good moments in this game, but obviously Daniel Falele was the main storyline. Lamar Jackson and him reportedly had a conversation on the sideline. Frustrations are boiling over there after the interception. Tracy Wolfson, can't remember if it was Lamar or Falele that said they know what's coming every time, but even still, Zay Flowers came over. It was in that conversation. Here's my thing. Excuse me. With Daniel Falele, man, this Ravens season making me sick. They're making me sick. I can't even do it, man. All right, here's my hot take. It's not even Daniel Falele's fault anymore about what's happening on the offensive line. It's John Harbaugh's. It's the coaching staff's fault for putting him out there and even allowing him to go out there and do what he's doing. All right, like, obviously the execution part is Falele's fault. He's not going out there. He's not executing. But at this point, from what we've seen for the entirety of a season plus for Daniel Falele, I mean, he goes out there and he's just clearly not up to the skill level they need, clearly not up to the level, but it's not even his fault because he's getting put out there. Like, execution-wise, Harbaugh's not throwing blocks and letting guys run by him, but it is the coaching staff's fault that they are allowing him to go out there and continue to do this every single week. Like, what are they seeing out there that we're not seeing? Everybody has access to the film. Everybody has access to the highlights and they're watching the games. I mean, it's the coaching staff's fault for continuing to put him out there. And we didn't see any Emory Jones, if I'm not mistaken, in this game at left guard. Well, this has clearly reached a tipping point and a breaking point. I mean, Lamar somehow on a play where Falele got absolutely blown by, somehow completed the ball to Isaiah Likely for like 9 yards. Obviously, the big play for Falele was he got beat by a cornerback on a sack, Brandon Echols, who, let me actually pull up the Steelers roster. We'll do some research. Brandon Echols, who was essentially a slot guy, is 5'10", 179 pounds. Now let's go to the Ravens roster. So remember that, 5'10", 179 pounds. Daniel Falele is 6'8", 370, almost 200 pounds on this guy. And it wasn't like he got ran by. Falele got out-leveraged by this cornerback, this 179-pound corner. You can't have that. You cannot have that. And so, yes, Falele's not playing great. He's had a lot of loud losses this season. But what is the coaching staff seeing to continue to put him out there? This is a loyal organization. It's a loyal, and usually that's a good thing. You would rather have a loyal organization than a not loyal organization, because being not loyal and having things being messy, that can cause problems. But things are still messy with them being loyal. And what we've talked about for years, whether it be Steve Saunders, Greg Roman, I think Harbaugh in a lot of cases, sometimes they're over loyal and guys overstay their welcomes, whether it be a season, a week starting, a couple of years. It's become a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And, they tried the whole guard experiment thing. He came out of Minnesota as a tackle, clearly hasn't worked. I just don't know how you can consciously continue to throw him out there and say, yeah, it's working out. I mean, it's not, especially when some of those plays that he gave up were massive moments in the game, especially early on when you're trying to establish momentum on that Eccles sack. I mean, it wasn't like a fourth quarter play or anything, but it's tough. It's really bad. So that's one problem that I had. The other problem I had was with the usage of Derrick Henry early in this game. There was the sideline. And again, I love Keaton Mitchell. I love me some Keaton Mitchell. Everybody who has watched me for years, I wanted them to draft Keaton Mitchell. They've got him as an undrafted free agent. I was like, yes, let's go. They shouldn't be using Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell in a rotation where they rotate on and off drive after drive, where like one drive is Henry's, one drive is Mitchell's. That's not how they should do things. They should use them in tandem together on the same drive. Give Henry breaks, put Keaton Mitchell in there, change of pace. Derrick Henry against the Steelers defense, again, had been horrible without Derrick Harmon. And even in this game, I mean, the Ravens were finding rushing lanes effectively. They averaged 5.4 yards a carry. Henry himself only averaged 3.8. And I like that the Ravens were using Lamar's legs a little bit more in this game. I thought that was really big. But there shouldn't be any moments like that. And then, they're like trying these first down plays when they're having some success. So again, it wasn't like Derrick Henry was overly spectacular on the day, but he had a couple of really nice runs that I thought was gaining momentum. And the Ravens kind of pulled that momentum out from under him. We're like, all right, we're doing something else now. And that was difficult, I think. So it's tough. And Lamar, just for the record in this game, 19-35, 219, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, made some great throws, also had some not great throws in this game. He threw it short to Henry on a screen pass. Obviously, the interception was tough and a couple of other throws he missed, but also he had some drops, right? And even some plays where like Zay Flowers doesn't get both feet down in bounds and Bateman drops that ball. There was another one as well. Like, not every incompletion was Lamar's fault, but he also didn't play like spectacularly in this game. I thought he played a lot better in the second half for the most part. Like I thought he really started to find a rhythm, was playing with a lot more confidence. But in that first half, it was pretty brutal, and he kind of had to get going a little bit. Where Lamar hasn't been at his best for the last month, but I thought he was better in this game than we saw. And again, like what's the bar there, of course, but I thought he definitely was better in this game, but still some things that he can work. And again, like the deep passing game, like that throw to Zay, and Zay was getting open. Zay was awesome in this game, 8 for 124. Obviously, he had the ball that he didn't catch in bounds and whatnot. But I thought he was really finding the soft spots in the defense, and that part to me was really, really good from Zay. But other than that, I mean, Zay had 11 targets. Next closest was likely with 6, and Zay had almost 100 receiving yards more than the next closest receiver, had 99 more than Isaiah Likely did. Rashad Bateman had 2 for 23. It's been a rough year for Rashad this season. It's been really rough for Rashad. It's been a bad year. And, even for like Andrews, you can talk about like touchdown production where, Andrews in this game, one catch for 9 yards, not really a, hey, I signed an extension moment for Mark, but he at least has 5 touchdowns this season. Rashad only has 2, had the big drop in this game as well. Just, it seems like it's the Zay Flowers and everybody else show, right? That's what it feels like to me. It's the Zay Flowers and everybody else show. But I think at the end of the day, what this game told me the most about both of these teams is that they're both probably one and dones. That even if the Ravens somehow make a miraculous comeback, week 18, win the division, get in the playoffs, I don't have confidence they're going to do anything in the playoffs anymore. I was holding on to a sliver of hope. Maybe they can show me something over the last months of the season, but I don't see it. Pittsburgh, look, I'm pretty shocked with how Pittsburgh played offensively. It kind of got like the second half performance I thought was more so what we were going to get from them. But again, like the Ravens allowing like deep passes, which the Steelers couldn't do for the last month. And they were just getting fried on those deep passes. We haven't really talked defensively, but it's really difficult and really tough because, the Ravens have to work through so much. And again, like these are talented football teams, right? Like, the Steelers, they still have, like, that's what I've been saying. Like the Steelers still have names on that defense. They just haven't been playing well. And, it's tough because they didn't have Derrick Harmon or Kyle Duggar. Those are 2 really important pieces. But yeah, I see Young talking about it. Sickening is a really strong word, actually. I like to describe this loss. It was certainly sickening, especially with the way that some of these calls went, some of the execution went. And I think, again, like the Ravens offense figured it out as the game went on for the most part. Wasn't perfect in the second half, obviously, but it's just like it takes too long, right? I've said this for years with Todd Monk, and they either start super slow and then figure it out as the game goes on and it's too late. They start fast and then they just fizzle out over the rest of the game. Like, I want to see a consistent wire-to-wire game where I'm not asking for like 45 points, just like a consistent, hey, over the course of the entire game, the Ravens played complete sound football. And like, looking back on the year, have they even had one of those games? Like, I'll have to figure it out, but I don't, it's, I'm supposed to say words here, and sometimes you just run out of them because of how flabbergasted you are at how a season has gone. And this season has just gone so off the rails from what I expected. So, I mean, look, long way to go for Baltimore, but not really. I mean, you have 4 games left to go. John Harbaugh said 4 games left to go, but 4 games is not really a lot of time to get stuff going, especially when you're under 500 through week 14. So, tough loss. And coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into just really what's next for this team, dive a little more into the game. If you have any questions, put them in. I'll try to answer some of them as I see them. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way here on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. All right, rounding out this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, talking about this Ravens loss to Pittsburgh in week 14. Does mean the world to me that you are tuning in after a loss. It's a lot. I know we also do have some Steelers fans in here. And look, we welcome all fans, Ravens and Steelers and everybody, as long as we keep it respectful, right? Everybody's welcome to talk and ask questions. And, I know for Ravens fans, we're not having a good time here because the Ravens lost to the Steelers. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, video form, audio form. We're going to have a very interesting show tomorrow. We're also going to have the squad show after this. So be sure you check out and tune in. But it's just tough because, like, I just keep coming back to don't let the refs decide the game. And there were so many missed opportunities. I mean, Tyler Loop misses an extra point. The special teams, by the way, I've said so many good things about the special teams unit, and I've meant them. Like, they've played, like, especially the kicking units played really well for the majority of the season. But, Loop had a pretty rough game in this one with the missed extra point, a couple of injuries, and even Boswell. Like, Boswell had the kickoff that was poor, so it wasn't just Loop, but he had a couple of kickoffs that weren't great. The missed extra point, obviously, obviously defensively, like on third down, the Ravens, who had been getting better at third down defense, allowed Pittsburgh to go 6 of 14, which is just under 50%. The Ravens went 7 of 18. So, I mean, both teams had a lot of third down opportunities, but it felt like in the clutch moments there. So, yes, the refs make some bad calls. Yeah, they did. But it shouldn't have come down to those bad calls in the first place. And we can admit that both things can be true. Like I've said, is that the Ravens did not play well enough to win this game, and there are glaring issues across the board. Like, for example, that Zach Orr, when he had that blitz call on that Jalen Warren touchdown, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has seen everything in the book, right? Aaron Rodgers is not J.J. McCarthy. He's not Shadur Sanders playing in his first ever NFL action, or Dylan Gabriel. Like, he's seen it. So when that pressure comes, he knows he's going to have an outlet to throw to, and everybody's going to be either on islands or not a lot of guys to cover. I would have been okay, and I said this on the watch along, I would have been okay at that call if Aaron Rodgers hadn't handled pressure well over the course of the game. But he had. I don't think the Ravens, I don't think they had a sack. They didn't have a sack in this game. They had no sacks. The pressure was not there for the majority of this contest. The Steelers offensive line, did their part. They did their part. And, we saw multiple plays where Aaron Rodgers was just moving around in the pocket. He ran for a touchdown, making Aaron Rodgers look like 2015 Aaron Rodgers out there. That's unacceptable. And, sometimes, like, when your pass rush on a play is David Ajabo, Brent Urban, John Jenkins, and I think Travis Jones or something, like, you're probably not going to get a lot of pressure. There's no disrespect to those guys, but it outlines a glaring roster hole that the Ravens did not address. And while Draymond Jones has been really good for the Ravens over the first couple of weeks, he had a quarterback hit. I think we saw some good things from Mike Green in this game. I thought he had a lot of bend, which was great, but I just, the roster holes that the Ravens have right now are so glaringly bad that it's becoming impossible to overcome. Because look, like Marlon didn't have a great day on DK. He made some plays. Like he had that play in the end zone that he batted away, and a couple of others too. But he also got beat early in the game, obviously. And the Steelers, a team that they couldn't pass deep. All of a sudden, they're throwing all these deep balls. But Aaron Rodgers is able to sit back in that pocket for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. Yeah, you're probably going to give up a completion because guys just can't cover for that long. And while there were open completions on certain guys, like for example, Chidobe Awuzie got cooked by Calvin Austin. He saved a touchdown, but that's on Chidobe Awuzie, right? He got beat on that play. That was a quick, all right, Aaron Rodgers sees it, sees the win, boom, over the top. All right, you get the completion. That's on the secondary. But multiple times in this game, pass rush just wasn't there for them. And we had seen a couple of interesting moments in this game that could have gone either way that favored Pittsburgh. And there were a few that went Baltimore's way. But again, it's just like the magnitude of those moments were huge. And I see a question here from PCL. Kevin in the chat, should we have gone for 2 after that last touchdown? And I guess you could have. It wouldn't have really made a ton of difference, though, because it was a 6-point game. He kicked the extra point. It's a 5-point game. Essentially, Loop missing the extra point was the difference between needing a field goal and a touchdown at the end of the game, assuming that you did decide to go for 2. Because if Loop didn't miss the field goal, would have been a, 10-point game? And then you would have, that's not my strong suit. I messed up on the math. I'm going to hand up. That's on me. But again, like essentially the long story short of it is that if Loop didn't mix the extra point, just add 1 point on. Right? So add 1 point on. The Ravens score a touchdown to make it a 6-point game towards the end of the game, right? Or, whatever it is. They get the points. And you make it a 5-point game. If Loop had made the extra point, then you would have had it be a 4-point or a 5-point game initially. And then you could have gone for 2 to make it a 3-point game instead of a 4-point game. So those are the questions. Like, should they have gone for 2? I don't think it would have really made a huge difference. If Loop made the extra point, it's a different conversation. But, it's tough. And that true. This is a good point from Zeus. Zay did get face masked on that late catch. And, about him flexing, that's more of a ref problem with them missing it. Like, I'm not sure they would have given him the call. I mean, if he had sold it and yanked his head back, maybe, because you didn't see a ton of turn on the head with it, I guess. But you could clearly see him get pulled on that play. The celebration part wasn't really a huge factor to me, but that's another call that they missed. So it's tough all the way around. But again, what are you going to do now? If you're the Ravens, you got to win out. That's what you have to do. You need to start next week. And that Bengals offense, Josh Allen did it to him a little bit, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to beat the Bengals, get your AFC. Because again, if you fall to 2-3, because what's Pittsburgh's standings NFL? What's Pittsburgh's record in the division? Pittsburgh's division record is 3-1. So Baltimore right now, they're 2-2 in the division. Pittsburgh, do they have a game left against Cincy? No, they have a game left against Cleveland. All right, great. So Pittsburgh is going to be essentially 4-1 in the division unless Cleveland pulls off an upset. You need to win this game against Cincinnati to have the division tiebreaker be off common opponents. If you tie in that division record, then all of a sudden it becomes common opponents, and Baltimore did have that. Now, I think they're tied there again because Baltimore and Pittsburgh are a common opponent. I think that's how that works, if I'm not mistaken. But right now, your offense, I'm going to do a silver lining here. I'm going to hope that the offense found something in the second half of that game. I am hoping the offense found something in the second half of that game. But again, it's frustrating to see, you can't have a sack at the end of the game, and that's what happens. You can't do this, and it happens. You can't afford that, and it happens. And it's just, all in all, a team that was already in such a tight spot and having to get out of it, all of a sudden just makes their lives 10 times harder. So one loss will probably end their season, especially if it's against Cincinnati or Pittsburgh. We know that because of the tiebreakers that they do not have against Buffalo, against Houston, against Kansas City, etc. And, it's just slow starts during games, slow starts during seasons. And again, the Ravens don't necessarily start overly slow, but the past 2 seasons they have 0-2 last season. And obviously the 1-5 start this year, sometimes it's just too much. And while the season technically is not over, it's very deflating right now to look back on this game and see missed opportunities, to look back on this season and see missed opportunities and kind of wonder what could have been. But there are just such glaring holes and such glaring weaknesses on this team. And I've said this over and over again, where your strengths get you into the playoffs, but your weaknesses eliminate you from them. And it just feels like even if the Ravens did go on that magical run and make the playoffs, how far are they really going in the postseason if they do make it? So seems like a lost season, but it's not officially over yet. Still got to play the football games in front of you. 4 of them left, but this one definitely disappointing, losing to Pittsburgh in the fashion they did with the refs, with the missed opportunities they presented to themselves. Again, the refs can do this and do that, but you got to put yourself in position to win the game, and they did not do that, despite the fact that the refs certainly did have an impact on this game. That's all I have for you here today, though. I'm Knocked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back here on the Squad Show in just a couple minutes, really. We'll be diving into that with myself, Sam and Joku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. So be sure to stay tuned. Hit the like and subscribe button in the video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form. We'll also be back tomorrow with our Monday show at 6 a.m. Eastern Time to kick off another week of Ravens coverage. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Knocked On Ravens.